the audience would be a really unique element in this match, and I'm excited to delve into that. I
Yes.
do want to bring up what Dave did bring up, by the way. This was a sellout crowd, 18,752 fans for this one, $478,000, $478,156 gate plus $130,303 in merchandise. I'm not a big math guy. You'll learn that along the course of this, but he had this to say, and it almost feels like some of this is prophetic. Edge, Christian, and the Hardy Boys took a big step toward being recognized as something more than people in the pack, garnering a standing ovation for their ladder match, which featured a series of creative and high-risk spots built around the ladder. Even with one of the stronger main events of the year, with WWF champ Hunter Hearst Helmsley finally garnering his long-awaited win over Steve Austin when Rock's interference backfired, it was the younger wrestlers who left the lasting impression and were subject of the buzz with the show. And that is going to be the theme of this. And I can't wait to unpack all of this. So let's talk some money stuff first, because you are big money, Matt. And I think pay is something that we hear people in the front office maybe not want to talk about, but you're someone who's very open and transparent with the importance of making money in pro wrestling. That's what this industry is about. So really good gate there. Business is great. WWF just went public a few days before that. What are we talking in terms of getting a payoff from a match like this?
I'm so glad you asked that question. So I did a deep dive into everyone's minds, and obviously Matt Hardy, Jeff Hardy, Edge, and Christian, we've all been beat up pretty good over the over the course of these 25 years. So I was trying to think in my mind. I was like, what did we get paid? And initially in my mind, it was 10 grand. And then I thought, I was like, hold up. Well, I remember five more. Maybe it was 15 grand. I remember there was a number, and then there was 5 grand more.
And then I want to clarify, that's per person, correct?
Yes, this is per person. Whenever I speak, it is per person. And then I started trying to rattle everyone's memories as I spoke to them about it. I said, does anybody remember exactly what we made for this match? And one of the funniest points were that Christian reminded me about earlier today was, he said, do you remember when Road Dogg pulled us aside? He said, you guys, if you don't make 30K each for that match, I'm going to quit the business. He says, so obviously you should. If you guys don't make 30K each, I'm going to quit the business. He says, oh my God, you guys killed it and killed yourself as well. So I asked guys about the match. And then initially my brother Jeff said 50,000 ? And then he said like, oh, no, wait. I hit 5 and said 20,000 ? And then I asked Edge about it. He said, I don't know. Was it 5,000? Was it 10,000? I said that 10,000 stuck out in my head initially. And then I asked Christian, but I said, I have a pretty good lock on this because I remember it well. What happened when we got that payday? And you would get paydays for pay-per-views like 3 months later in that day, because they would wait till all the pay-per-view revenue came in. We got $5,000 for the match. And then we thought like, oh my God, come on guys. This was like a show stiller, and like people were buying the replay for this match. We knew it was definitely special. And we addressed JR about this. And then JR ended up bonusing us each $5,000. So we all made $10,000 on that night. The No Mercy 99 match. This fact has never been publicly stated or revealed. $10,000 ended up being the ultimate payoff after we questioned the $5,000 and we got a $5,000 bonus, because we said, I know there's so much buzz and so much hype behind this match. People are buying the replay specifically for this match because everybody wants to see this match. And JR's explanation was perfectly logical and reasonable, I would say. He said, well, coming into this match, it was a big platform and opportunity for you guys, but you guys weren't the ones that were selling this pay-per-view. You know, you weren't a Stone Cold Steve Austin, you weren't a Triple H, or you weren't an Undertaker or DX, whoever, one of the main draws who actually, you know, brought people to the show to buy the pay-per-view. We did get highlighted on that night with them, you know, so that was understandable, but he did buy into our point of people are buying the replays because of this match. And we know that a lot of people were like buzzed, and that created like, it created this unique, like, oh my God, these guys are crazy. You got to watch this ladder match. These guys are crazy. That kind of buzz. So people were buying the pay-per-view. It did really well in replays. So they did bonuses as far as that goes.
Well, so I want to ask, coming off of that though, And I think that's great that JR recognized, because Jim Ross, as people may or may not be familiar with, JR was in charge of payroll at this time. So you
Yes.
guys going him, that is not unusual. That is what talent would do. And but I want to know, does that now set the precedence that hardcore matches, these guys are due a little more of a bump in pay because of what they're putting their bodies through?
Obviously, back in these days, there was much more of a hierarchy, and I feel like people were really looked at as like top tier acts, a little bit underneath that, almost top tier, middle of the card, and then opening acts. So for us to not get a huge payday off this match that ended up being like a monumental deal, I do understand it, looking back in hindsight and looking back at business and understanding how the WWE works. And I feel like over time, the system has changed in many ways. The pay structure has changed, where people are treated more equal in this day and age. I feel like equality has been a big part of our society as we have moved forward in time anyway. And people are looking for equality on all levels. I feel like that's kind of like things that have just been ingrained, not only in business, but also just society. Then we made 5 and 5, which ended up being 10, which was a small piece of the pie. Back then, you had these things called downside guarantees. And what a downside guarantee was is like you were guaranteed to make X amount of dollars. My downside guarantee was in 1999, it was $75,000.
Wow.
So if you busted your ass, if you worked hard, if you got over, if you were on every show, then you could make, double, triple, quadruple that guarantee. I'll be quite honest. In that year, we tripled our guarantee of 75 grand in 1999. And in 2000, we made 13 times our guarantee. We were on 75, 100, 125, 150 year deals then. So you could bust your ass and you could work hard and get over. And that was like the motivation. You were supposed to use that as motivation to try and be better and make more money. That's how they wanted talent to try and work harder to move up the card or become a bigger act. Now, in this day and age, the last few years at WWE, whatever your downside guarantee is, I think it's more or less a salary, where they pay a little more money, but it's like, that's pretty much what you're going to make.
Right.
They advertise it as a downside guarantee, but whatever you end up making, it's not going to be much more than that amount. So,
Right. And the
that's
industry
probably part of just the equality
where
of
the industry has changed too, where there's not, you're not basing your payouts off the live gate as much anymore. There's so many different revenue streams that are coming in. At least I'm talking the WWE realm, where Saudi Arabia, pay-per-view, everything, all these Peacock deals, all that. So the pay structure is not, we need to draw this at the house this week, and that's what the boys are going to get. So that seems like a
yes.
natural change in that sense.
I mean, it's very different. I mean, even at AEW, I mean, you look at media, there's so many different sources of revenue coming in besides just like your television deal, which is like obviously the main payday that is coming in from the company, which they pay their pay the wrestlers out of. At WWE, God, is huge. They've got the huge 2 television, the Peacock deal, Saudi Arabia, and then there's plus other little things where money just continues to trickle in. So it really does. It's very, very different in this day and age, because media and technology has expanded so much more. So there is so much more money they are making. Like TV it's the main focus, but it's not the entire focus in this day and age.
Yeah, 100%. And just to put in perspective, WWE had revenue of $251.5 million and net income of $56 million in the fiscal year of 1999. It was the highest ever to that point. Just big, big time money coming in. And, to the point that I was making, I just want to put a bow tie on this. Like, yeah, sure, maybe it didn't set a precedent per se on how much money you get paid for a hardcore match, but what it did do was it made those hardcore ladder matches and TLC matches part of that draw that you're talking about, where people are buying these pay-per-views because they're going to get a great ladder match out of it.
Yes, we put equity in the ladder match concept, where people are going to be more likely to buy pay-per-view because they see Hardy's or Edge and Christian in a ladder match environment, because we put equity in that concept, and we made it like a staple, and we made it something that became very popular. It had like a huge cult following at that time, and little did we know that it would kind of change the whole style of wrestling in many, many ways, because wrestling, that match is like a precursor to what wrestling is today, especially outside of your basic match, when you have like a gimmick match, whether it's a ladder match or table match or a TLC match or a cage match, whatever the match may be, it's going to be much more exciting. There's going to be more stunts in it. It's going to be much more athletic and acrobatic. And we were kind of the pioneers of that movement at the No Mercy ladder match.
Yeah, I mean, WWE even created an entire pay-per-view concept off of it, so I think it's safe to say that it became a draw.
Yeah.
One other thing that I wanna say as we get into this is it's a very unique time.
And John, I was going to say they created a whole TLC pay-per-view out of it, but we haven't gotten any kickbacks from that.
Wow! Oh, man, no kickbacks whatsoever from no residuals, nothing as a result of the pay-per-view concept. It was dropped this past year, so maybe someone caught ear that you were gonna bring that up at some point, and they were just like, "Yeah, we should probably can that."
Yeah. Maybe Big Money Matt was going to get his fleet of attorneys on them.